and I'm excited to be in the same room as the leadership team at Synergy Technical here. We were just debating how long it's been since the three of us have been in the same room. So excited to get together and talk all things AI and Microsoft Copilot with our attendees here today. Quick brag, our marketing team did an awesome job putting this together. I believe we have the most registrations for a webinar in company history. It's almost like this is a trending topic right now. Have you guys heard of AI?
No.
So excited to learn about it today, though.
Yeah. I hope they're not logging in to hear me talk. We're gonna hear from people smarter than me. We do have quite a few people that are new to Synergy Technical that registered for the webinar. Excited for you to join us, meet the team here today. Quick background on us. We are a technology consulting firm headquartered in Richmond, Virginia. We do IT strategy engagements, executive consulting, migrations to the cloud. We were born in the cloud partner 12 years ago. Security initiatives, managed services work, and so much more. We've done work in all 50 states, 70 plus countries, and out of 400,000 plus Microsoft partners, we are one of less than 100 that are nationally managed. So we've had some great conversations with executive leaders and product managers on the Microsoft side of the house, along with our existing customers and folks interested with AI. We've listened to all the podcasts, read all the literature, and we're coming to you today, all of the literature. AI aggregated it for me.
Excellent.
And we're coming to you today with a conversation from the C-suite and the executive leadership team here at Synergy Technical to hopefully address some of your questions. Just a quick reminder, the webinar is being recorded. You can also enter in your questions into the Q&A forum on the live event here today through Teams. So without further ado, let's introduce the team I have here with me today. Ro, would you like to get us started?
Sure. Hi, my name is Rohana Meade. Please call me Ro. Everyone does. I am the CEO of Synergy Technical. So I do basically a whole lot of nothing and rely on these two to get stuff done.
That's how it works.
Super excited to do this. I love technologies. This could be fun.
And Clay?
Clay Westbay, VP of Delivery here at Synergy Technical, background in project management, infrastructure, security. I've been with Synergy to be a decade in December, and I'm around for 15 years plus, and I'm excited to talk about the topics today.
And I'm Dan Finn. I'm the Vice President of Sales. I've been here for 4 years, which makes me the newbie, considering most of the staff's tenure here, but been in the Microsoft space for 12. And actually met Ro about a year after that.
One of your first customers.
One of my customers as well. Yep, managed an enterprise agreement for you. So first question to both of you. How are your overall feelings about the current state of technology and AI becoming mainstream?
So a few things. Synergy was born in the cloud, as we say, and what that really means is that we were one of the first Microsoft partners to be out there talking about cloud technologies. And we had a motto, be disruptive. The shirt, I actually pulled it out of the closet, is 12 years old just about now, because it was the first motto that we led with. So I am very, very excited about disruptive technologies, have been for many years. AI is clearly probably the most disruptive technology that we have seen in a long, long time. I do think that we need to be cognizant that AI is different than any other technology that we have seen before. AI is the first technology that can really teach itself. You know, previously with things like the printing press, which was very disruptive, printing press can only print what humans give it to print, whereas AI can learn on its own. And so that there's some uncomfortableness.
And create.
AI can create things that no one's ever seen before. So I'm very excited, a little bit terrified. You know, I grew up I was like 22 when Terminator 2 came out and Linda Hamilton had to save the world. A little bit nervous there, but excited.
Those that know me know movie references have gone way past my head. I thought we were going to do it from a technical perspective, but you already got us with movies.
Yes.
Clay?
Yeah, I'm with Rob. I'm super excited about what's coming with AI. much like the cloud. Although I think with AI, with the creativity that is going to be allowed from the end users, it's much more exciting from the end user standpoint, I think. With cloud, there was a lot of enhancements to be able to scale your business, to roll out enterprise security solutions, and really a lot of back-end efficiencies were grown, right? Which, birthed AI, right? Because we have all this data. So I'm super excited. I'm with Rudder, I'm a little scared, but I definitely think there are risks that can be managed, and I think we'll talk a little bit about that today.
And that's why we brought you two in the room to add into my never-ending optimism as a salesperson. You're going to bring the why should we be a little scared? I think what are the concerns? What are the
We're
risks?
IT people. We're scared of everything.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons a lot of people are saying AI has been a field forever, right? 1956 was the year it began to be studied as a field. So why now? And I think the biggest difference is that you've got a common language UI, right? You can input a language in the way we talk to each other today,
Right.
to interact with the technology that didn't exist last year. Right?
Sure.
So AI has been around forever, but now it's got this real chance to go mainstream.
If AI drives efficiency, I don't know anybody that loves being efficient more than IT people.
There
Yes.
you go. So Ro, as a business leader,
Yep.
Is AI for real?
Yes, absolutely it is. I think it's a great tool for becoming more efficient, for sure. I think it enables people to get to answers faster, which faster is good. You know me, and Synergy in general is we move very, very quickly. I think that people need to be aware that you still need to fact check answers. Just because ChatGPT gives you an answer doesn't necessarily mean it's the correct one. I have a really interesting example here if you would like to hear it.
Let's hear it.
All right,
Let's
so
hear it.
I just did this morning.
Beyond the New York legal case that everyone's familiar with.
Yeah, and this one is just fun. So this morning I typed into ChatGPT, I have a 3-gallon bucket and a 1-gallon bucket. I want to measure 1 gallon. How do I do that? Seems a simple question.
This was a
right?
Die Hard thing. 5-gallon bucket and 1-gallon bucket.
Yeah, exactly.
Movie reference.
And lifting that 5-gallon bucket for me was something, 3-gallon. So to measure exactly 1 gallon of liquid using a 3-gallon bucket, this is ChatGPT's answer, and a 1-gallon bucket, you can follow these steps. Step 1, fill the 3-gallon bucket to the top. Okay. Step 2, pour the water from the 3-gallon bucket into the 1-gallon bucket until the 1-gallon bucket is full. At this point, you will have 1 gallon of water remaining in the 3-gallon bucket. Step 3, empty the 1-gallon bucket. Step 4, pour the 1 gallon of water from the 3-gallon bucket into the empty 1-gallon bucket. Now the 1-gallon bucket will be completely full and the 3-gallon bucket will have 2 gallons of space remaining. 3 gallons minus 1 gallon is 2 gallons. This method allows you to measure exactly 1 gallon of liquid using the 2 buckets. Now,
I'm lost, and I think we have 1 gallon in both buckets.
yes, yeah. And so my point there is that while you can use these tool sets to give you an answer, and that answer certainly works, it may not be the best answer. And as human beings, we know that if you have a 3-gallon bucket and you have 1-gallon bucket and you want to measure 1 gallon of liquid, just use the 1-gallon bucket.
Yeah.
Through all this craziness. And that's the reality. So again, while AI is real, I think it's really, really important that you don't lose those content experts and you don't have somebody validate that the answer that it gave you is an appropriate answer.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I think we'll reiterate in a few different sections here today. A phrase I already heard a Microsoft executive use was, it's Copilot, not autopilot. Right, so we're not going to be able to turn our brains off and just let AI run the world. I know some of you just raised an eyebrow, but it can be a start for us. So Copilot and AI, those are 2 common terms for today's session, but there's many other industry standard terms that seem to have some overlap, seem to have some differences.
Yeah.
Generative AI, large language models, machine learning. Clay, help us understand.
So yeah, lot to go through, but really today focusing on kind of what Dan said, generative AI. So there's different types of AI, but generative AI is this broad term for the type of AI that creates. We give it prompts or tasks or questions, and it creates. And there's lots of different foundational models that can power generative AI, but probably the most famous one is LLMs, or large language models. And so that's powering things like ChatGPT. And so these models are able to take all of this data, these large data sets, and then produce things like text, visuals, audio. And on top of that, it uses machine learning to get better. So every time it gets prompted, so in the case of Rose's example, it can continuously learn and give better answers over time with that machine learning. So those are kind of the bigger concepts that make up this generative AI that we're talking about.
So let's give a peek behind the curtain, shall we, and what tools are being used inside Synergy Technical?
Teams Premium has an AI recap that is absolutely incredible. And I show this to folks all the time, where if you have Teams Premium and you turn on recording and transcription, it will send you this recap afterwards that you think, okay, it's just going to take, and it's going to take the transcription and that's going to be the recap. It absolutely is not. It summarizes the salient points. It dives into detail. It then gives you even suggested action items. And, on an hour-long meeting, it can be 3 pages of really, really good notes. And so I've gone to this practice, and I know it makes my staff crazy, where I say, I'm going to record this meeting. We'll get all the pleasantries out of the way first, what you do over the weekend, sort of all that stuff you don't want recorded. And then I'll hit record. And I don't have people taking notes in meetings anymore. And so for me, that's been huge. We've just turned on Bing Chat Enterprise. We're playing with that now. It's been useful for sure. We don't want to have client data in ChatGPT for sure. So Bing Chat Enterprise is good for us. And while it's not new, very few people really are aware of it. We had an aha moment with you. We've been using Bing Search for Work, which really uses AI for absolutely forever. It's how I find everything. So those are the ones that are within kind of my immediate sphere of influence.
Yeah, same on my side. And I would say that, our team is loving the meeting recaps and the action items pulled together for you automatically in a nice, clean, concise manner. The project managers are absolutely loving it, because if you can imagine being in a meeting, fiercely taking down notes, and then having to go back, clean up those notes, they're right there in a nice, clean manner.
Well, and the thing to know is when you're taking notes, you're often not listening.
True.
So.
No, but if I'm in your meeting, I'm listening.
That's why we don't take notes anymore. We're seeing the Viva modules become a bit of an interface to some AI technologies as well, and some of the Copilot features. So on the sales team, Viva Sales, which is being rolled up into the new term Sales Copilot, we've deployed that to the entire team. Recording meetings, you can also embed into your Teams and your Outlook client. One thing I had to admit to my boss, who's standing next to me here, is that the data integrity in CRM was called out instantly. There were probably some folks logged into the webinar here that I interact with on a daily basis and had not put their information into CRM. These tools are going to help with that. So already productivity gains. Talk to listen ratios, call to actions came from Sales Copilot as well. So now, not even necessarily for project managers, but for a sales team, you can log off a call and immediately have customer asked for this. You said you would deliver that. You can even copy and paste into a Word document and have it deliverable at the end of every meeting. It's been very transformative.
Well, and what I would add to that, and in IT, we certainly run into this, institutional knowledge. You can have a network admin that has everything in their head. And as much as you document stuff, it's, they're out sick for 2 weeks and all of a sudden things are falling down. The ability to get that institutional knowledge really quickly and easily and document it is huge. And that would be a game changer for every IT organization I've ever worked with.
Yeah. And now let's say outside of IT organizations and consulting firms like Synergy Technical, one of the questions we had prompted from one of our registrants was what other roles, what other use cases. So let's think roles outside of Synergy Technical. Where do you see this being useful?
Well, obviously for marketing, content is king, and the ability to quickly create content is going to be huge for anybody. Sales teams we've talked about. There's the legal examples where there's AI technology today that you can plug in legal documents. It will review those legal documents against what are possibly your standard T's and C's that you need to have. And it'll come back with suggestions around what doesn't meet your specific requirements. I worked in the bowling industry for a million years. It feels like a million years. And one of the things that we always ran into, and this is true in retail in general, is that when we were sitting in senior management meetings and we were going through revenue results, there was always this answer, well, revenue was down because it was snowing, or revenue was down because it was an 80-degree day, or revenue was up because it was raining. And so weather became this denominator that we always talk to, but we can never really prove that. I think AI will allow you to not only prove that because you can work with massive data sets and take your revenue and apply it against what the weather was, but more than that, it can help you predict what your results could be in the future, and maybe even create staffing levels around that. And I think that example applies to so many things. It could apply to pizza parlors, it could apply to restaurants, it could movie theaters, all of that. So I think we haven't even begun to tap into the potential for AI.
That's one of the craziest thoughts, is what we can envision today is nowhere near what this could be 2, 3, 5 years from now.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. We don't even know what technology it's going to create for itself.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Terminator.
Yeah, I think, if you think about the way we're working in this hybrid remote workforce today, and you think about maybe a customer service agent, right, that's not sitting directly in the office with other customer service agents. I know they have, some chatbots today that enable customer service agents to help end users, but imagine those being powered by this generative AI and the ability to, create content that's going to help end users. And that customer service agent that may be sitting remotely at home or somewhere else that needs to, generate help for their customers. So that, and I think security analysts, I think it's going to be a game changer, because if you think about security analysts and what they're going to have to deal with the threat landscape, the ability to use generative AI to remediate a threat, come up with action items, create an incident report. The number one kind of challenge that's on cybersecurity leaders' minds today is the shortage of cybersecurity talent. Mm-hmm. You have all these young people coming into this field, right? And maybe don't have the background and the expertise. Imagine what, the security copilot could give, these people to be able to help, against the threats that are out there today.
And typically the tools that team uses require daily, weekly, monthly hygiene activities, threat hunting, running playbooks against the environment to find the threat, right?
Sure.
So how can we automate that, or have a tool do it for us?
Yeah.
And then use your highly paid cybersecurity analyst for proactive, more value-added projects.
I mean, if you think about the security analyst sitting there, without maybe they're remote as well, without maybe some of the, used to have camaraderie with the seniors sitting right next to you, to be able to have, now you're remote as well. And if you think of any area in IT where we need efficiency, I think security is up there.
Yeah, amen to that. And I've had a couple interesting conversations. Healthcare was one that was highlighted even at the Microsoft Partner Conference. So I had dinner with my neighbor and his wife, who's a pediatric doctor, and she was talking about the note taking that's required from every meeting she's in, right? So the dictation system, where she spends 2 to 3 hours a day documenting exactly what was talked about, the symptoms, the prescribed, whatever she's going to put in for the prescription medicine or the remediation efforts, right? And she can either pay someone out of her salary to do the notes for her. She can pay out of her salary again for a service that will essentially record the meeting and then she can massage the notes. And I had this dinner 2 months ago. I said, give it 6 months, this tool is going to be there. And I've already seen a demo of that tool, right? Where 2 to 3 hours back for her means seeing more patients, delivering higher quality service in the healthcare field. That's huge.
Related to that, we have a customer that is a nonprofit that performs a lot of surgeries all around the world. And we worked on a project for them this past year where basically they're taking the before and after photos of these surgeries, scanning them, and then using machine learning to make predictions around what the outcomes are going to be for surgeries. And that used to be a very manual process. It's also helping them figure out where they need to go do these surgeries. And all of that is directly related to these tools even being available and readily accessible. I mean, we're not talking about having to build server farms and things like that anymore.
Right.
With the public tool sets, you can be a nonprofit and you can have a project like that, and the compute power is available to do these types of things. So it's amazing.
What's great about that is that app is built, right? That technology was there. We don't need to wait for something to go GA. So that probably leads to a question for Clay. We're talking Copilot. There's a couple of different Copilots. We talked Bing Chat for Enterprise. Can you help us understand the difference? I think everyone's asking.
How many versions of Copilot are there?
Right off the top of my head, 6.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that, but
I won't.
I'm going to go with 6. Bing Chat Enterprise. So think of Bing Chat Enterprise as kind of your Chat GPT, but in a secure business manner. So now I can take my business data and compare it to maybe industry trends out there with this Bing Chat for Enterprise. And use this generative AI in a secure manner where I don't have to worry about my company data being leaked.
Yep.
It doesn't, unlike some other generative AIs, it does not track, it doesn't keep the data that you use to prompt it. So there's no history of that. And also Microsoft cannot see the data that you input into that tool. So it aligns to their safety and security standards. And then you have the Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is probably the most well-known, I would think, out there. But this is the tool that's going to plug in to the apps that your users are familiar with, like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and it's going to give them the ability to create with these apps using the Microsoft Copilot for 365. In the Security Copilot, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but this is where your security analysts are going to be able to use AI to generate threat reports to come up with remediation items. And then we have Sales Copilot, and I shouldn't be talking about that.
And we hit on that one a little bit. There's GitHub Copilot, there's Azure OpenAI, which is that concept to build off of internal to your tenant. One of the coolest ones I've seen was the Power Apps Copilot. So to go back to what we said at the beginning, where it's a common language interface and Power BI can build the dashboard for you off of a single question. So the scenario from the bowling industry of how many pizzas do I need on a Friday night based on the weather, BI is going to run across my entire database and pull out some analytics that I can read from. Will it be 100% of the way there? No, you still need that person interacting, applying some common knowledge to it. But creating that dashboard just remove 3-4 hours of activity.
Yeah,
it's pretty impressive stuff.
More.
Yeah, I'm probably lowballing that estimate.
You're a sales guy.
I'm a sales guy. So let's talk. We've brought up some concerns. I think most people aren't trying to have me sell them on AI. They're trying to understand where it fits in their business, and maybe we'll talk about the risks of AI, and we're hitting on some of the data and privacy concerns, but let's hit it from this angle. What are the risks of not embracing artificial intelligence?
So the first thing is it's coming and it's in your environment, whether or not you think it is. I can remember really, really well as a CIO. I refer to myself as a recovering CIO. Still go to those meetings once a week. I can remember really, really well my boss, the CEO, walking in with his iPhone and saying, make this work in my environment. And as IT professionals, back then, BlackBerry was the secure solution, and we didn't want to let anything into our environment without it being secure. That is going to happen to a CIO. The CEO is going to have a conversation with Dan, and they're going to walk into the CIO and they're going to say, I want to implement this thing. Sorry, I know I'm creating noise here. I want to implement this thing. And so you need to be prepared to do that. The other thing is, if you don't think it's happening in your environment, it most certainly is. And so even if you're blocking these tool sets from, within your corporate network, there's nothing stopping someone from sitting on their personal laptop and inputting questions into an open source tool set and getting answers and then turning around and using that for work purposes.
Very much like we heard when we were taking customers from on-premise to cloud.
Oh, absolutely. I can't even tell you how many rogue Salesforce implementations we ran into where the VP of sales had gone out and they had just bought Salesforce licenses on their credit card and were implementing Salesforce, and IT had nothing to do with it. That's happening today for sure.
I've received this phone call.
Yes.
The board said, how do we put AI in the organization? The IT team said, hold on, we're researching. In the meantime, the other divisions across the organization all reached out to their vendors and have started buying whatever those vendors wanted to call AI.
Exactly. So the first thing I would say is, as a recovering CIO, it's coming. It's coming. It may be there. You just may not know about it. So you need to be taking some steps to make sure that you're prepared for it. That's going to be around securing your data, and certainly Clay can elaborate on that more. The other thing is, you would do much better to have the tool sets that you recommend so that users are going to go find something. They're going to go find something that works for them. If you have a tool ready for them to use, that's a much better alternative, and that tool should be secure. So enterprise grade security. You just don't want people jumping into Google Bard or Chat GPT or whatever, putting your data in and not thinking, okay, this data could be being saved and used to train the LLM. Long answer, but those are my concerns.
But I think on the bright side of this, Microsoft is ahead of this, and they have Microsoft Purview out there for customers to take advantage of today to protect their data. So implementing things like data classification, DLP, making sure sensitive data you have access reviews out there. I think, with this cloud, we've seen a lot of team sprawl. I know as people come to us all the time, we've got teams everywhere. We don't know who's created these teams, who has access.
Data in multiple places.
Yeah. So if you think about that in terms of a generative AI, now you have these people that may not even know that they have access to this data, and they're creating content, and it's pulling from the data because it's going to respect the permissions that you have in place today. So, but it's your job to make sure that those are correct.
You gave an interesting line on a conversation last week, I believe it was. It's not going to increase permissions, but it'll amplify the access that was already there.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. If you have cracks in there, it's going to magnify them 1,000 times.
I hate to break it to the world, but that's out there already. Again, if we talk about the Bing for work, if you aren't adequately protecting your data today, this was the eye-opening example that I showed you, your data could be being surfaced, at least internally, and you just don't realize that individuals have access to data that you didn't expect they did. So if nothing else, get your data tagged.
Yeah. I mean, I think that on the bright side for customers that are preparing for AI, they have these tools and they can take advantage of it now, right? They can get ahead of the game. Say, yep, we have a plan to get our data in our access reviews. We think everything is good shape, but we need to make sure we have our data classified, but maybe we need to take another look, right?
Yeah, because once this thing goes GA, all bets are off.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to be sitting in some board meeting where one board member has access to this and shows another, and it is coming.
I think I gave this example last week too. So, we do a ton of migrations from on-prem to cloud, right? And with on-prem, search really wasn't great.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't a great experience. And so we would take, data and migrate it up to the cloud, and the permissions would come over exactly as well. When they got the cloud, search was enhanced, and I could instantly find things, right? They'd say, oh, these permissions aren't correct. And you go back to the source and the permissions are exactly the way they are in the cloud, and they match, right? But it wasn't easy to see, right?
Yeah.
And so I think you're going to see that again here.
So that was my eye-opening experience. I immediately went to my OneDrive and had to review files I shared 4 years ago, still with permissions out there for the entire organization to edit. In my case, luckily, after my quick review, there wasn't anything proprietary there, right? But OneDrive, OneNote, all these places where I might have info I only intend for a small group, Thing4Work's already out there and can search this, right? So getting that information governance in place, I will be a salesman for 1 minute here and say, we can help you with that information governance. There's a reason Microsoft has baseline licensing prerequisites, and that's to include the security and information governance components that you want in place. And you don't need to wait for the tool to go GA. To Rose's point, it's too late at that point, right? Your users are already trying to find some consumer versions of this. When it's available in the tenant, they're going to start poking around. It is the buzzword of the year. We have a Copilot readiness assessment. We can help you understand exactly where your tenant is today and how to get in a more secure posture. I'll hang up and listen. Thank you. Ro, a very, we've been growing leaps and bounds. It's been a fun 4-year journey for me. But I think a very valid concern across any organization in any industry is AI going to take my job? Do you see AI or Copilot eliminating jobs?
I don't see AI or Copilot necessarily eliminating jobs, but I do see AI and Copilot changing jobs. The ability to get answers and create new things, and I'm going to say new things, I mean content or solutions or whatever, exponentially changes roles. I think that, and we've had this conversation multiple times, if you're the individual that refuses to use AI in your job, absolutely, I think your job goes away. Mm-hmm. If you're the individual that says, I'm going to use AI to enhance my job, I think that your job changes, but I also think that your career trajectory potentially changes too. Has the ability to put you on the map with individuals. So there's that. I also think that AI will create a whole bunch of jobs that we don't even know exist today. I know for us, the more efficient we can be in how we do things, so the more efficient we deliver projects, which AI will enable us to do and does today, the more revenue we generate, the more jobs we create because we continue to grow. So I don't think that it necessarily eliminates jobs. I think it absolutely changes them. And the folks that dig their heels in and say, no way, yeah, I think that's a problem.
Yeah. I mean, think about the Power Platform engineer, think about their ability to use natural language to create a flow. And in Power Platform too, that they do all the time, except they're doing this in a manual way. I don't think that it takes away from the fact that whatever AI produces, they have to be able to understand that flow and dissect that and make sure that it's correct. So it's not, like you said, Ro, it's not eliminating their job, but they still have to know, but it's going to enhance their job. So if you think about the person that's using it versus not using it, the one that's using it is able to produce more in a more efficient manner, but they still have to have those key skills, right?
Yeah. And I had a funny anecdote and then a quote to layer in there. And one would be another conversation I was having. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, typically coming to you from Richmond today. And I was having a conversation with a lawyer there who said, I prompted my paralegal, in-person prompt, not an AI prompt, to create this template that he needed for a standard document. And I said, use that ChatGPT thing. It wasn't proprietary information, just use that and get it done. And she didn't want to. for whatever personal or professional reason, maybe she was trying to be protective of her job even, right? Which valid concerns at times. Didn't want to. And he said, so I went to the college intern who knew how to use it, and he got it done in a couple of minutes and sent it right my way. And that's all I needed. Project was done, right? So
And that college intern probably got offered a job.
he stood out, right? So
Right.
To your point.
Right.
And then the quote that came to mind, I've been reading a ton of literature, podcasts, everything I can find around this. Scott Galloway is a NYU Stern School of Business professor, and his quote was, this will be paraphrased, AI won't take your job, but someone who understands AI could. And I think that summarizes at least this room's thoughts on what AI is about to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Dan, I have a question for you. You're the sales guy, which is
News to me.
yeah, right. During Microsoft Inspire, which is the annual partner conference, Microsoft announced pricing for M365 Copilot, and that pricing was announced at $30 per user per month. Which I don't know what any of us thought, but I don't think we thought 30. There was certainly some sticker shock that happened. What has been the feedback that you have received around that?
Yeah, and that might be news to people joining us today that weren't privy to that information or hadn't read up on those tech blogs. But after the initial noise of jaws hitting the floor, we were able to have some conversations. I literally sent emails to a couple that I knew were pursuing it and just said, here's the price, what are your thoughts? And at first it is sticker shock, right? So $30, if you look at everything in Microsoft 365 E3, you're getting productivity apps, you're getting security tools, you're getting Windows 11 Enterprise. There's a ton of features in there, and it retails at $36, which most organizations need to build out an ROI and a cost justification and identify which users are using E3 if they're not org-wide. And now you're saying an additional $30 to layer in AI. But I think there's a different way to look at this. And conversations I've been having with clients, some are saying full steam ahead. We understand the value of AI and Copilot. We're rolling it out org-wide as soon as we get our hands on it. In most cases, what we're going to see and are already seeing is you're going to be identifying your content creators, those who can have the productivity gains that justifies a $360 a year annual expense, which we were talking offline. I was born and raised in Wisconsin. A flight back to Wisconsin is $500 nowadays. So would you send me to an offsite training to enhance my productivity for the next year? Just for less than the cost of my flight, you can enable me with AI for the entire 12 months, right? Yeah. So if you have people on ships pulling cables and they're checking their email once a day, maybe they don't need AI. But you've got the data analyst on the other side of the coin who's analyzing where should the cable go and how do we improve the structural integrity of that cable, anchors dragging across them and burying it underground, and when do we go in water versus buried. I think AI is going to make that 360 seem pretty meaningless at the end of the day.
That's a great case. I think after you said the price, you should have just said, hang on the line, don't hang up yet.
I mean, I can tell you that when I think $360 per year per person, if we multiply that exponentially across our workforce base, it feels like a big number. However, we're a consulting company, and so the way that we make money is around utilization. So for folks that aren't in the consulting world, lawyers or accountants, legalization is how many hours you have available versus how many hours you bill. And generally speaking, we don't bill for things like research time and various things. If I can invest $360 per consultant and increase their output because of productivity gains, that's huge. And honestly, if I can invest $360 and get more out of this guy, I'm doing it. I mean, I'm
waiting on it, Clay.
yeah, that's right. It's like, oh, man.
I need this efficiency.
Yeah. So while it feels like a big number at first, if you think of it in context of your increasing output, I think it's reasonable.
And now there is a underlying prereq to this. I mentioned it earlier, right? So there's an underlying cost before you can layer in $30 for Copilot. For small businesses, you're limited to 300 licenses within a tenant, but you can use Microsoft Business Standard or Business Premium. And then for enterprise organizations, anything Microsoft's considering above 300 seats in this scenario, you're looking at Microsoft 365 E3, which we just mentioned was 36 retail, and Microsoft 365 E5. On top of those baseline costs, you have to have some features enabled in your tenant, some baseline technologies enabled. And we're going to gamify this and see if I can get it right without looking at notes. Azure AD, OneDrive, Teams, Loop, the new Outlook for Windows, which is a big pain for me because I'm a legacy client user of Outlook.
I'm trying to be jumped back for you.
And did I miss one? I feel like I missed one. I probably nailed it. Let's go with I nailed it.
Yeah.
All right.
So there are those baseline prereqs. Again, we can help with the readiness assessment, understanding exactly where you need to go. Let's pull it back up just a level from what we've already used, use cases, baseline cost. What are you two most excited about for apps you haven't had the opportunity to work with yet?
So I'm probably quadruple booked in meetings all day, every day. And I am a member of maybe 300 teams in Teams, might be more, don't know.
Probably more.
I hide a lot, I gotta tell you. So for me, Teams meeting recaps and even Teams, what did I miss? And, recaps of Outlook conversations and things would be huge because it saves me, and more importantly, it probably saves Chris Weinford, my chief of staff, trolling through and summarizing all of these things that happened. So for me, that's the biggest thing I'm waiting for. What did I miss?
Yeah. I mean, from those notes, being able to take those notes and maybe turn them into a proposal, or take those notes and turn into an executive recap for you and Ro. Because I can promise that PowerPoint recap, what AI is going to be able to do is going to be much more beautiful than what I could do with it.
Especially because it can use our style guideline.
Yeah. And
We have what now?
Right? Yeah, I know. So everything you do, that's with your marketing.
Yep.
So yeah, in addition to that, just the security copilot's super excited about what that's going to be able to do to help customers and security professionals. And if I know our engineers and our customers, I'm just excited to see all of the creative ways that they come up with to use the technology.
I promise you, somebody's going to a customer will come to us and they will have some use case that none of us would have ever envisioned. And it will be so cool.
Yeah.
I already heard of one. They built on top of OpenAI, Azure OpenAI services, essentially corporate bylaws and how you run your board meetings. Everyone tries to follow them, but in a typical meeting, maybe some rules are broken just unknowingly, right? They took a Raspberry Pi device, a $40 thing, and built in this little AI application on top of it that'll alert during a board meeting when a bylaw is being broken.
Ooh.
Who's paying for that? I don't know. Who's paying for that thing? But that's a scenario in the first 3 months of Azure OpenAI that I would have never pictured, right? So we're naming use cases we can envision what this looks like 6 months from now, 2 years.
Well,
It's gonna be fun.
what our kids come up with is going to be incredible.
The real creative ones.
Yes, exactly.
For me personally, I'll layer in one more example. I just took a vacation last week. I was out for 3 days. Ro agrees I don't work when I'm out. But when I came back, Outlook's a mess, right? I think everyone's experienced this. Copilot in Outlook is going to pull out those it's identified as prioritized emails. Is it perfect? No.
Don't anything for me.
But can it give me the 5 or 6 that are from Ro and say, you need to get on this right away? Yes. And that's huge when you're staring at an inbox of hundreds of unread emails. Where do you start?
Yeah.
Typically, I just go to the bottom and start read, right?
That's right.
So final question, we've got just a few minutes left. We'll take some Q&A. So remember, drop questions into the Q&A forum in the Teams live event. The final question you're probably all wondering is, how do I get my hands on this? Microsoft Modern Work Copilot, release date?
I got nothing.
We know as much as you do.
You get Teams Premium, right?
You can. Yeah, Teams Premium is available. Sales Copilot is available.
Sales Copilot.
M365 Copilot, we are told this year means a lot of things. It could mean this calendar year, it could mean this fiscal year, which Microsoft is July through June.
Mhm.
I don't have an answer.
Yeah, this is being recorded, so
Yeah.
I'm fine being wrong on record. But the whispers I'm hearing, and just from the lack of firm GA release dates at this point. I don't think they're gonna wake up Monday morning and say it's released. I'm expecting Q1 calendar 2024, which is Q3 Microsoft fiscal year. Don't quote me on that, but we have a little bit of time, but that doesn't mean we can sit on our hands. Like we talked about today, there's a lot you need to do to prep
Get your
both
data
your
ready.
tenant, your data, and know the communications to your end users on what you're going to be rolling out. And
I was
there's
just gonna say that on the bright side, it's not happening tomorrow, so you got time to prepare.
Yes,
exactly.
yes, and I would take that time and prepare. Again, if you haven't implemented content labeling, I would be all over that.
Which is typically not a one-day project.
No, it is not.
Let's leave it at that. So,
Yes.
Ro, you got your computer in front of you.
I do.
I do not. What
I-
kind of questions do we have?
Okay, so let's see what we got here. First question was around the cost. I believe we addressed that. The cost is.
Yep,
specific.
very good. Prereqs with $30 for modern work Copilot on top. Bing Chat for Enterprise is $5 if you don't have the baseline license.
Yep, and then, what are leadership opinions and reservations? We're excited yet slightly nervous about all of that.
Concerns.
Yeah. Clay, this is an interesting question for you. What is the current and future impact on cybersecurity, and what type of cyber fraud could AI cause?
Yeah, I mean, if you're watching the news, you're already seeing AI being used in a manner to exploit deep fakes. So we're seeing it being used already out there. But I think what we're going to be able to see is kind of what we talked about today, is that, to deploy some of these, monitoring tools in an organization that we know, I mean, we help customers deploy them all the time. They're not easy lifts, right? So, I mean, the ability to be able to use AI to configure these tools and monitor them in a more efficient manner and remediate threats. So I do think the two forces are going to be working against each other. So it's just a matter of, making sure, your team and your environment is using that AI to combat those threats that
Exactly.
who knows what they're going to look like, right?
But if you try to not adopt it and try to just come to version 2, a year from now, the attackers, the bad actors aren't waiting.
Yeah.
They're not.
And I think, if you think about some organizations that may just be behind on basic fundamentals of security for
MFA.
whatever reason. Yeah. I mean,
MFA, right?
there's a number of organizations that maybe have deployed MFA, right? But they don't have conditional policies out there to enforce MFA. They didn't know they needed it. They maybe thought it was out there, right? So, in addition to your data, going back and reviewing all of your security measures that you have in place, where do you have gaps? Where do you have vulnerabilities? I think that's just another part of getting ready for this thing that's coming down the road.
I've made that point to clients. What used to just be a healthy security posture, a maturity in your security posture, that was the title of the end goal, right? We're going to do a security assessment. We're going to analyze our tenant. We're going to put document labels out there for sensitivity. It's got a different title now. It's AI readiness, but the baseline activities, the functionality has been out. We've been doing these projects for years, right?
Sure.
Absolutely. Let me see, and I really do apologize if I'm making noise by banging on, but my old eyes. How are IT admins going to use Copilot to perform their daily tasks? Mr. Westbay?
So think about, having to take exports, and then, for example, my IT admins do this all the time. They take an export of data and it's in Excel format, right? What formula do I need to use to get this data in the correct format so I can get it over to this other tool? Or, think about being able to do that in natural language,
Right.
in prompting and having that done. Being able to create code, do code reviews, being able to create standard operating procedures out of maybe a case that just happened. So think about a case that has all of these notes in it. Take these notes and create me an SOP. Today, a lot of that is manual, right?
Right.
Or just doesn't happen.
Or doesn't happen. Documentation is sometimes gets left behind.
Tribal knowledge.
Yeah.
Tribal knowledge, yeah. Dan, this is for you. Will it be free to use for nonprofits?
That's not what I'm hearing. We also have a nonprofit manager that I meet with monthly. I'm not hearing anything around discounting just yet in that space. I think the Microsoft line you'll hear is there's a baseline cost to them supporting AI and the back end for every prompt. So as of now, I would assume that $30 Copilot license applies to the nonprofit space as well.
All right. Could change, we just don't know.
Yep, as of now.
As of now, everything's predicated on as of now. I believe this question is also for you, as you are the only cheesehead in the room.
Oh.
Yes, exactly. I think you should plug this into AI personally. How many games will the Wisconsin Badgers win this year?
I know who this is from. So to directly answer the question, the Wisconsin Badgers are going to go undefeated this year. They're going to beat Ohio State. No further questions, Your Honor.
Got it. Got it.
AI's never wrong.
And AI is going to say 8 to 9.
I would like to refer to the bucket example in ChatGPT.
Yeah.
The answer was wrong.
No, it would never be wrong.
Yeah. That's what we have for questions and time for questions, really. So I think anything else, we can certainly, your team can reach back and get answers for folks.
Yeah, absolutely. You see on the slide here, my direct email address. You can also go to our website and find our Copilot landing page. There's a blog post from Clay that was recently posted as well as one of my team members with further deep dives around Copilot. We're here to answer your questions. There's a lot of questions out there. Hopefully this was helpful, pulling the three of us together and going through our excitement and our concerns around AI and what's to come. But we know there's more out there, so don't hesitate to reach out.